Kia ora and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm your host, Kathy O'Sullivan, the editor for CIO New Zealand. And I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Mark Hale, who's the Chief Technology Officer at AIA. Hello, Mark. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Kathy. I'm doing really well today. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed, after an eventful week. So to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit more about AIA and what your team does there?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. I'm CTO for AIA New Zealand. I've been in the role now about 18 months after many years in Singapore, London, New York. My second time living in New Zealand. As CTO for the company, it's really my core responsibility to provide a secure and stable platform for the business to operate on and to innovate on. AIA New Zealand's dream for the New Zealanders to become one of the healthiest and best protected nations in the world. As New Zealand's largest life insurer and leading health insurer, our purpose is to help New Zealanders live longer, healthier, better lives. With that in mind, we have the Vitality platform, which is a science-backed program which helps New Zealanders understand the current state of their health and remove barriers to better health, and to create incentives to stay motivated to improve health through exercise and nutrition, things like that. So for us, it's really about enabling that. The technology platforms that support and deliver on that, privacy and data security are a key part of that as well.
Interesting role and lovely purpose as well for your organization. You mentioned there that you've worked, in Singapore and in the UK and elsewhere, and I'm sure transformation has been a huge part of what you've done in your previous roles. So can you talk us through your approach to transformation? It's often thrown around, as if it's a given within organizations, as if it's something that's easy to do. Can you tell us how the approach has taken shape in your own career?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting question, casting my mind back to the roles I've had over the last 25 years or so, and how each one is really a personal transformation. As we take on broader roles, more senior roles, or other roles in the organization, as we learn about the business, each of those comes with its own challenges: language barriers, cultural barriers, acronyms, company culture. There's a real amount of change that comes with each and every change in country or role. It's a real personal journey of discovery. I think it's a way of getting to know yourself better and deeper. I think there's a lot of challenges that we face day to day as leaders, but in each and every role that we take on, we grow a little more, hopefully learn a little more, become a little bit wiser.
So walking back from that end product of transformation, whether it's a new system or a product that you're trying to implement, or absolutely overhauling the business, what do you think, from your experience in that 25 years of working in various different roles, what are some of the kind of key steps CIOs must take along the way? Is there ever something to kick off a transformation journey?
Yeah, I guess that is, as you say, it's absolutely a journey and not a fixed state. It's always a worry if we try and treat transformation as a project with an end date. It's really about a transformation and continual change. For me, it usually starts with the word audit feels a bit heavy, but a kind of an assessment of the current state. Where are we from a technology perspective, from a people and skills perspective? That's the foundation. I think from there, it's important really to engage key stakeholders. In my particular role, it's the rest of the exec team and my boss, the CEO, to really make sure that we develop a shared vision, and that we're able to collectively prioritize once that vision's been set in motion. Things will change. COVID will come and go. Priorities will need to shift. So I think the ability to embrace change and to really understand deeply that change management is a continual process, and then to be able to monitor progress and have a feedback system is really critical. It's kind of a bit of a flow. It's sort of the process I go through in my first 90 days of how do I set those steps and those pieces into motion, and who do I need to talk to at which stages of the process of getting up to speed.
Yeah, and it can be quite challenging. You mentioned there, obviously, we've gone through COVID and the language issues that, may have been a barrier in previous roles and working in other countries. What other kind of roadblocks or common challenges do you think that come up that CIOs need to avoid along the way or just be mindful of when they're going on this transformation?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's rare that anyone would step into a greenfield environment and have something to build from scratch. So legacy systems are always there. How legacy they are will somewhat depend on the business and the role that someone steps into. But legacy systems and processes, and often those very intertwined, are a key thing to look out for and not underestimate the complexity that those can bring. Budget constraints, of course, are ever present. There's I don't think a company out there that would say they don't have budget constraints. It's one that needs to be worked through very closely. One of my key relationships is with the CFO here. We need to work very closely to understand what the implications are of decisions or of not taking certain decisions in our modernization journey. I think culture is a big piece of this. We as technology leaders need to understand where the resistance is to change and to try and face into that early. It's not an easy conversation. People are generally, and I find myself in this group as well, we get quite wedded to the way we've been doing things. It's natural to want to be more efficient, more effective at what you're doing. So changing that dramatically is uncomfortable. And trying to understand whether it's discomfort because of the fear of change or whether it's discomfort through lack of skills, I think is an important differentiator. And either of those can be tackled, but if you get them wrong and you try and tackle it with the wrong solution, it can become a little harder. But I think for me, those are some of the key ones. And I think that plays into earlier around change management and being able to address how change management change in an organization is continuous is important.
I mean, that feeds nicely into my next question, which is around, do you see there ever being an end date to transformation? Is it just that evolution, or, do you take that project-based approach with deadlines and milestones, celebrating the wins? Because is there a risk of, if it is just this ever-going change, is there that kind of change fatigue that might creep in as well? How do you see it?
It's funny you say change fatigue. It's a phrase that we've used here in my time. We've got certainly a high cadence for change. We like change as an organization. I think there's no fear of that, but it needs to be balanced with sense of progress, I think, and being able to set milestones for deliveries. Things will need to run as projects. Other things will live as long-standing products as we adopt more agile ways of working. So there's a real balance to it. I think absolutely there's no, for me, real end date to transformation. It's a continual improvement journey. Sometimes that needs to be accelerated, and an acceleration can more naturally fit with a transformation because it feels like a bigger change in a shorter time frame. But I think overall, it's a place organizations need to feel comfortable is that continual transformation, continually challenging yourself or disrupting yourself.
So you mentioned earlier, that key relationship you have with your CFO. So in wider than that, in what ways do you collaborate and influence AIA and its leadership team?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, there are a number of stakeholders that the role has. We meet often. I have one-to-ones with each of the other execs. It's where we can really get into the detail of what's working, what's not, and where some of those priorities might be shifting. Ultimately, it's time. Being available, being accessible as an extension of their leadership team when they're having key discussions, and making sure that IT doesn't feel like an isolated part of the business, but that it can be pulled into conversations at the right time. I think being able to show adaptability, again, I think I mentioned that earlier, is key. Setting forward a vision and being too stuck with a direction can often feel like IT isn't flexible and isn't agile. So being able to build and demonstrate building of platforms and capability that enables the business to go faster really builds trust. And so the more conversations I have with my boss and with my peers is always time well spent.
Now, the pandemic brought IT into sharp focus for a lot of organizations, and particularly when everyone had to rush home and work from home and perhaps never had to do that before. How do you think the role of CIO or CTO has changed since the pandemic, and how do you think it's going to evolve?
I think it's been a huge change for the role. I think perhaps in the past, the role has been more of a delivery function or a keep the lights on type function, but it's really shifted to be more strategic partnership. I think the tools and technologies, the ways of working that CTOs, CIOs have been able to deploy for businesses over the last few years now, VPN solutions, hybrid working, AIA deployed a platform for our advisor community, which we call eApp, and it's really changed the game in terms of how we do business. We were first to market with a platform that really enables our advisors to submit digital applications on behalf of their customers. I can't imagine what the world would have looked like had we not been able to push that innovation through. We would have certainly been very, very manual and very paper-based for a lot longer. So it's a really strategic partnership, I think, that the CTO role has, a real voice at the table to support the conversation around change and how we grow the business. We need to become more agile, certainly more resilient. There's no change in, I guess, the earlier piece I mentioned around stable and secure systems, but being able to deliver iteratively and quickly for the business is around processing, and how do we support some of the change, whether it's agile or some of the supporting technologies with DevOps, really enable the business to go faster. But we're the ones that should be leading and are leading those conversations.
And the other thing, that there is now a lot of pressure when it comes to getting people into roles. We know there's a skill shortage out there. So how are you creating that internal culture that really helps people thrive at work and achieve those personal and professional goals?
Yeah, I think that's a really important part of the role. One of our three pillars from technology that support our organizational strategy around building an engineering culture, being customer obsessed and outcome focused, and simplifying and modernizing our technology stack. But it's really the first one around building an engineering culture that I think is most relevant to your question, Kathy. We've deployed a lot of training materials and certification programs to the technology teams. We're a big Salesforce user as an organization, so using their Trailblazer framework is really important. We've deployed Cloud Academy, which gives people the chance to grow within their technology skill set. We build a lot in well-being and health and wellness. The purpose that I mentioned earlier is more than just marketing. We really live and breathe it, and I think it's a huge opportunity as people join us to grow in their careers and grow personally and professionally, as well as in their wellness, if you like. We've got a lot going on. We embrace internships, so we work a lot with Mission Ready and Tuputoa, and we're building a stronger bench, if you will, around our talent pipeline. So we've deployed our career pathways in 2022, which allows technologists to grow to the kind of same seniority as managers. And so we're not holding people back in those constructs. So that's really empowering for people. They can see career growth and opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting that you should mention those organizations to get people from more diverse backgrounds into IT roles. What other practical things do you think can be done to get more people into IT that maybe have not considered it as a career path before?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think there's definitely an underrepresentation in STEM fields generally from school. I think as leaders, we can be more involved in our kids' schools around what they're doing. And certainly I've been to my daughter's primary school and seen what they're doing. We can champion a lot. Mission Ready are a great organisation when it comes to offering people shifting career opportunities. An organisation called Take Two gives, I think, whilst I don't work closely with them, opportunities for people re-entering the workforce. So embracing those and working out how businesses can support those, I think, are really important.
So when you look back on your own career, Mark, are there any kind of mistakes that stand out that even though they might have been uncomfortable at the time, they really shaped you as a leader and you've really learned from them?
Probably more than we've got time to share. Hopefully that's why I've grown. I think some of it is around communication and perhaps learning how to read a room, but also understanding how decisions are made and how to approach changing strategy or delivering on a strategy. I think often you don't get many retries at shaping a conversation. It's about timing. So I think, yeah, there's been a couple of instances where in retrospect, just doing a little bit more planning and preparation around how to tackle the execution of a strategy or a conversation is really critical. I think that's probably a key one for me.
So what's the best career advice you've ever received?
Some of it was as a result of those uncomfortable conversations, but also I think just to never stop learning. It feels cliche to say it, but we live in such a fast changing world as we look after IT, and we're custodians of systems that and businesses that will hopefully no doubt outlive us. It's really important to adapt and to keep learning and to be able to drive teams forward through motivating them with new technologies and motivating with the right problems to solve. So for me, it's about trying to stay on top of and tinkering with fun projects from time to time, but making sure I've got a good handle on what's going on in the teams and learning really alongside the teams.
And for anyone wanting to be a CIO or CTO, what advice would you give them?
It's a good question. I've been asked this a couple of times recently. I think it's knowing yourself and knowing what you really want to do. Often senior roles are held aloft as a career goal and an aspiration, but they're not right for everybody. You will, as a technologist, be slightly removed from the technology day to day. You won't be as hands-on, and that naturally happens as your remit grows broader and your role and stakeholders change. So if you like doing that, then work out a way to keep tinkering on the sideline, but don't expect it to be part of your role. And get comfortable with, how would I say it, looking after yourself. They can be stressful and they can be high pressure roles. So make sure that you've got an outlet, whether it's exercise or meditation or both. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to make sure that your well-being comes ahead of your striving for a career or a role type.
Absolutely. And I guess when you work in an organization that's so focused on well-being and health, it helps too. So finally then, Mark, we are heading into a big year ahead. We may have a change of government. There's certainly a lot of chatter around recession in the quarters to come. So what's important to you in the months ahead?
Oh, it's a great question. We're at this time of year, it's almost the ideal question as we're looking at our strategy for the year ahead. For me, ever present will be with the changes, the challenges, the change in government or the macroeconomic scenario will be about making sure we have stability and availability of our system. So stability is key, security is key. We will no doubt see increased activity targeted at New Zealand businesses over the coming year. We are definitely in a good position, but we don't take our eye off the ball when it comes to security or data privacy. They're paramount for us. Our cloud migration is well underway, so we're adopting Azure for our core platforms. That's making great progress, but there's a lot of work for the teams ahead, so that's going to be a big one. We're looking at intelligent automation, so which platforms and which processes are best suited to delivering better value for our customers and our advisors and our staff, and really making sure that we're ready for it from a skills and people perspective. There's a lot of technology there that we haven't aggressively used in the past, so I think there's a big opportunity for us to find people in market. We are actively looking for new talent. We're actively looking to support and grow our existing talent. So those two things coupled, it's going to be a really exciting year ahead. And of course, not to forget the focus we have on our customer obsession pillar. I think the amount we can drive through automation, through self-service, will really give a better experience for our customers and our advisor community, and really to drive the business and grow.
Well, we wish you all the best with those big projects ahead. Mark Hale, Chief Technology Officer at AIA, thank you so much for your time today.